right, folks, thanks for joining us today on Burning the Ships. We've got an exciting guest today, somebody that is, he is described in the Richmond area as the godfather of Richmond real estate. And today we're thrilled to welcome Jim Ingersoll. He's a seasoned expert in real estate investing, private lending, and financial freedom. Jim is a visionary leader and the founder of the DealMaker, where he's mentored countless investors to scale their portfolios and achieve their financial goals. With years of hands-on experience in buy and hold investing, flipping, wholesaling, and creative financing, Jim is known for his unique ability to make complex strategies simple and actionable. He's also a best-selling author, dynamic speaker, and a highly sought-after consultant in the real estate industry. Beyond his professional accomplishments, Jim is a dedicated family man with a passion for helping others unlock financial independence and live life on their own terms. His mission is clear: to inspire and equip people to take control of their future through real estate. Get ready to gain invaluable insights and practical strategies as we dive into the mind of one of the most respected voices in the real estate world. Please join me in welcoming Jim Ingersoll to the show. Jim Ingersoll, welcome to Burning the Ships, my man.
It is awesome to be hanging out with you talking about burning the ships today. Thanks so much for having me on. And congrats on over 100 episodes. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. This kind of started as just something on the side to kill some time and have some interesting conversations. And, we've been persistent with it and consistent with it. And now here we are. It's kind of taken off a little bit. And I appreciate you joining us because I just, everybody just listened to the intro, kind of has an idea of who you are at a high level. But I'd like to get things kicked off, Jim, just kind of turning it over to you and having you share, just quickly go through your story and the evolution of where you came from and how you got to where you're at today. And then I'm going to have a pile of questions kind of come up as we go. So,
well, I always try to find something I haven't shared with other people. So let me go back a little bit.
Okay.
I grew up in Western New York, up near Buffalo with a lot of snow.
Are you a Bills fan?
Yeah, I'm a huge Bills fan.
Okay.
I'm in Bills Mafia. So yeah,
Gotcha.
we got some big games coming up. And so that was great. And I went to school in Rochester, New York at RIT and got my engineering degree and worked hard, climbed the corporate ladder for a long time until I was almost 40. So it was almost 20 years ago. Ooh. And a long time ago. And then I was, at the end, I was running two factories and I had a lot of employees. But when I was told I had to lay everybody off and close the factories down, I said, that's it. I'm out of corporate America. I'm never doing this again. You could say I burned the ship.
Yeah, no, exactly. What, if you don't mind, I'll pause you there. What industry were you in?
Well, I was, when I moved to Richmond, I was with Listen Technologies over on the Burnham Avenue. It's now Lowe's. So leave that one alone.
Yeah.
And then after that, I worked for a building company, a manufacturer that built doors and windows, actually. And I ended up running their factory in Richmond and one in Raleigh, Durham area of North Carolina.
Okay. And so 40 years old-ish, you
Yeah, I was in my late 30s.
on that one.
But yes, and that was it. Like I was going to have to either relocate my family and keep climbing corporate America or get out. And Cheryl and I talked about it and we said, that's it, we're out. And so I started trying to figure out how to do that with real estate, and I did it with wholesaling. And when I first started out wholesaling, Jason, it didn't go very well. I didn't, I was really nervous about writing contracts and meeting people, and I would get a deal, have no buyer, find a buyer, have no deal. And just like you talked about consistency earlier, showing up every day, eventually everything clicked. And it sort of clicked when I was in Petersburg, Virginia, and I was driving around. And I saw a little for rent sign in a yard that had really high grass and a really rundown house. So I called the guy up, and his name was Bob. We're still in touch all these years later, believe it or not. But I said, Bob, we just had a conversation. Like, Bob, how are you renting this house? It looks like a piece of crap. You know what I mean? It was bad. And he said, I said, how's that going? And he said, not very good. And as it turns out, he had a number of homes that were in pre foreclosure. So we wrote up a contract for, I think, 5 of them to start with. He had a good sized rental portfolio, but they were all lots of deferred maintenance and, typical landlord issues. And all of a sudden, I started wholesaling those 5. And from there, I built my buyers list, and the rest became history.
So the wholesaling. So what you're saying that was 20-ish years ago.
15 or 20 in there.
Yeah. So it wasn't as hot of a niche back then.
Oh,
Yeah. So I'm curious what led you to that, because now that is the known way to get into real estate,
yeah.
right? Everybody, that's the easy way in with no money and stuff like that. What led you to that niche? Did you have a mentor steering you that way, or I'm curious to know?
Yeah, I think I did, of course, but I think I had to replace my corporate income. So I really quickly had to ramp up some kind of an active income. My whole life, I had relied on W-2 paychecks every 2 weeks as an engineer and then running factories, but that was ending. So once I got through my severance period, I was on my own, and my 2 daughters were in middle school. And so I just figured that's a way to go. And I struggled for a while, Jason, and then everything clicked. Back then, though, the assignments weren't $20,000, $30,000 each. They were like $2,500 each. But that next year we did 100 deals after that year.
So take us through that, because again, this is, you go from, you're in corporate America. You just mentioned that you had 2 young children, 2 daughters. You leave that world, and now I mean, that's the definition of the ships being burned, or you burning them yourselves, or whatever. But you have to, like, it sounds like you made up your mind. You're not going back to that world. You're going to make it on your own. So you go from starting slow, learning the business, I would imagine, to second year doing 100 deals. And I would imagine that's at that point you were getting back to your income or exceeding it.
Things were good.
Right.
Things were fine. At least they were stable, and so that was good. Actually, once I knew I had to close the factories down, I started figuring out how to wholesale. And even as we were going through the transition of shutdown and things, I was beginning to wholesale then, and things were starting to click. So I remember going to Starbucks and signing contracts while I was still working my W-2. Then all of a sudden, like towards the end of that period, I knew things were going to be fine, and everything just kind of took off.
Were you a student of real estate? I mean, when you were in that, was your mind like, I'm going to wholesale. This is it. I'm going to make a lot of money doing it, and this is what I'm going to do? Or were you thinking about the next step in studying and trying to research?
I wasn't thinking of the next step at all.
Okay.
I was thinking of survival.
Yep, I get
Because those ships were burning.
I get it. I get it.
Like Cheryl, and I didn't tell you this, but the other part of my backstory is Cheryl and I bought a duplex when we were in our 20s living in New York State, and it went horrible. Like everything went wrong. We were undercapitalized. We didn't understand finance. It was really cheap, but it needed a lot of work. I didn't have a rental application pull credit. Like I had no community. I had no training, no mentor, no nothing. Why really bad. So after that, she said, that's it. Like, I'm not doing this real estate thing again. So then we came back in a number of years later.
Yeah. So, and that's interesting because you get into wholesaling. So that's an active, like, you don't make income until you get your next contract. And then once that one, you paid on that, you get your next.
Wholesaling's pretty quick, though. Think about the timelines real estate investors are on. Wholesalers are on like weeks or months. Flippers, 3 to 6 months. Landlords, you're thinking decades.
Yeah. It's kind of, I mean, I've heard several folks talk about this mindset of like fast money, medium money, the slow money, and wholesaling is definitely the fast money, but it's active. You have to continue and get to the next contract.
It's transactional, like flipping. Flipping's transactional as well. So is anybody who's a realtor.
Exactly right. So as you start scaling it, I'm curious as to what point, because I know it evolved from there and got into different things. Kind of walk us through that evolution, and when you realize like, okay, I have to figure out a way to start building the longer term wealth and the slower money and things like that. So walk us through that evolution, if you
Well, I mean, as I scaled up my wholesaling, the way I was really moving a lot of properties as I would do these bus tours. And I have a lot of friends that I continue to this day that I met on those bus tours, people like Daniel Clayman. But so we would sell 6 to 8 wholesale properties on a Saturday on a bus. I'd put 50 investors onto the bus and we'd go house to house. And then we had like a bidding process. Isn't this crazy?
I've never heard the story.
So we have like 55 people go through the house. We get back on the bus. And as we're traveling to the next house, I do an open auction on the bus, like with a microphone. Picture me on the bus with a microphone.
Yeah.
This is true. I don't think I've shared this a lot, but, and then I would say, I would pass out these flyers and I'd say, put your highest bid for this house onto this flyer. And then we get to the next house and the highest bid, I announce it and they win. And then we go do it again. That's how I moved so many houses.
Jim, that is, I want to stay here for a minute because was that your creative idea or where did you get that? Because I haven't heard that. I mean, I just hadn't heard that story before. So
no, it was not my idea.
Okay.
It was not my idea, but we used it and we implemented it and we had a lot of fun. Like we went all over Richmond, Petersburg, and we'd eat lunch together. And sometimes we ate in vacant houses, like front yards. Other times we went to Golden Corral. We did different things.
So you've got this, I just make sure I understand the mechanics of it. So you're getting 4 to 6 houses under contract. We've got this network of 50 plus investors or end buyers, if you will. And you create a network where y'all are hopping on a tour bus, essentially going house to house.
We charter a 55 passenger bus. I'd also put hard money lenders on there and I'd find contractors. So like when you think about it, everything you need is there because you got a hard money lender saying he'll fund, and then you got a contractor verifying, this is good on repairs.
That's phenomenal.
I did that a lot.
Yeah. So you're doing that. That's obviously.
No, then I had to burn the ships again. You want to hear that?
Absolutely.
Okay. So that was going great. This is like 2006, 2007. But then what happened? We hit a market crash. You ever hear that?
Heard a lot of that.
So, it became really easy, the opposite of today. It was incredibly easy to buy deals. Like they went dirt cheap, right? Foreclosures went through the roof. And hard money lenders, a lot of people don't remember is hard money lenders stopped lending. So all of a sudden there was supplies of distressed property everywhere. Not good for wholesaling, by the way. And at the same time, all the short-term lending went away. A lot of it dried up. Hard money lenders started to struggle. So I switched and I began to flip. And I flipped through some of those years. And then a little bit after that, I began to buy and hold.
So when you made that transition from primarily wholesaling to flipping, and you didn't have the hard money lending had dried up, if you will, what was your source of capital? Was it savings through the wholesale?
No, I've learned to get private money lenders.
Okay.
All of this has to do with burning the ships. I've never thought about it until I was on your podcast today.
Right.
Because I mean, when things go away, you've got to figure them out, and that's what I did. I learned to get private money lenders. Began having conversations with people I know at places like Panera Bread Company, and just talking about the situation. So you got to start bringing partners in and start figuring it out because banks and hard money lenders were more difficult.
Yep. So start flipping. Now you've got that as your primary source of income and focus. When did you start evolving to buying hold? Holding the properties and building up your portfolio.
Well, the first one we flipped, I intended to, I had hoped to hold it, but then a realtor approached me and said they wanted to buy it, so I sold it. But a little while later, I started doing some lease options, and there was one I did on Chimborazo in Churchill, And then the guy defaulted on the lease option and it turned into a long-term buy and hold. And I just started, I guess, doing it a little bit by accident. And then I had to figure out the long-term financing. And financing, as you know, that's your thing, is the keys to the kingdom. Once you figure that out, you can do as many deals as you want.
Yep.
So it just sort of, I don't know the exact time frame, but things just started to transition.
Were you essentially, I mean, now it's the famous Burr strategy, but were you doing the Burr strategy before it was known as the Burr strategy?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, Daniel Kramer and I will both laugh about that because we were doing it before it was Burr, but that's essentially what it was. We'd lock up a property with a short-term loan, fix it up, rent it, and rebuy it.
Yeah, and that's essentially, I mean, we did the same thing, obviously more recent, but that's how we built our portfolio is first using our own capital, and then we scaled the deal flow a little bit higher, which our capital's in other deals, so we start using hard money, and then, and that worked well when the refinance rates were low, but yeah.
More difficult now.
Right. So
Yeah,
and I'm going to come back to some of these things because I jot down questions as we go, but I kind of want to continue through the evolution. So now you're holding some, you're flipping some. What's the next step for Jim?
Well, I started also doing these mini seminars.
Mm-hmm.
This goes back like 12 years also. I did one on flipping. I did one on landlording too in a conference room. And sort of pulling groups of people together and sharing what I'm doing, and they would share what they're doing. And then I started doing them more consistently. I got into this annual event. We had different names over the years, but then people started coming from all over the country. This maybe 6 or 8 years ago, and then it morphed into what we call today as DealMaker.
But it's DealMaker,
like a hotel with 30 people.
Right. And DealMaker now is, I mean, it's your brand that you created, but have you kind of franchised it in a way? Because I know
licensing it.
Okay, gotcha. Because I know you have a big event, like y'all just had a big event down in Orlando, correct?
We did.
Yep. And then, but you have these local DealMaker chapters that are in different areas. Is that how it's structured?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Last year, in the one in Virginia, at the end of the one last March, 2 of the folks that were in there came to me with this idea. It wasn't even my idea, Jason. It was Yvonne and Pam. They're in Orlando and Raleigh-Durham. And they said, we love DealMaker, but we don't like waiting for the big events. What if we were to try this idea where we do like an investor club type meeting in our own city using the culture of DealMaker? And I thought, well, that's an interesting idea. So we tried that. And now we're up to 13 cities, and it's growing every month. There's new cities popping up around the country.
Fantastic. I'll share a quick story with you that you're probably not aware of, but I worked with Greg Dickerson probably 5-6 years ago. I was still in my corporate career. And at that time, I was scaling my real estate quite quickly, but I was also working a job that it was a sales job. I was a sales manager for an insurance company. I kind of had to be pretty low key about what I was doing in real estate to avoid any conflict. So when I was working with Greg, he was encouraging me, you got to get it out there, what you're doing, and get to these events. I said, Greg, I can't right now until I get to a point where I can go all in on it. He said, well, when you get to that point, your first connection needs to be Jim Ingersoll. And that was 5 or 6 years ago. And at that time, like I had to be very careful. I didn't even want to physically attend events because I didn't want to run the risk of, Jason spending all his time on real estate. But now, 5-6 years later, here we are, and you're on our podcast. Say, I'd
burn your own ship first.
Yeah, exactly. And Greg was wonderful to work with, and he's been on the podcast in the past as well. So
Greg is awesome.
Yep.
Love
yep. So now, I mean, you kind of walk through at a high level of the evolution of, where you're at now. Now, is there anything else in that evolution or that story that you want to share? I mean, did you get into any multifamily investing, anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, probably about 5 years ago, we started investing also in Florida, and that started with a 20 unit. So yes, we did, I'm sort of a duplexaholic. I love duplexes, triplexes, and quads. They're so easy. So yeah, we did my kind of go into that space a bit. I'm glad I didn't go all in when rates started rolling up. That is for sure, because there's plenty of syndicators on these bridge loans and things that are in trouble.
Yeah,
I'm thankful for my journey.
right. I'm an LP, limited partner at a handful of syndications, and fortunately, a lot of it has to do with all of them are struggling right now that are having these like you said, bridge loans and insurance rates and things like that. But it just validates to me, because I was very diligent about getting to know the operator I was getting in business with as an LP, and so if they communicate well, I'll stick through anybody through the hard times if they're open, honest, and communicating. And there's a lot of syndicators that just tuck their tail and run. And unfortunately, I'm not in any of those deals. But I agree with you. We bought a 16 unit in Norfolk and Ocean View back in 2022. So that was right before things started going south with the rates. And the intent on the heels of that, when we did leave our jobs later that year, and I'm saying we, my business partner and I, we were going to syndicate apartment deals, and we had to do a real quick pivot once we kind of saw where things were heading. But and I'm glad we did. I'm really thankful we did. But that 116 unit was an education in itself. We didn't know what we were doing. We treated it as if it was a single family house, right. Which is, in hindsight, we made all the mistakes, but it's like anything else in real estate. You just hold on, and things tend to work out. So,
and Ocean View is beautiful. I also own right on Ocean View.
Oh, really? Okay.
So, it's a great area. I love it. Love seeing it come back. There's people syndicating on Ocean View right now. I just got a request for an LP in that area.
Yep. Yeah. We've looked at, like I said, we kind of paused on the bigger acquisition side. We'll still look at anything 20 units and below, but there's a couple things that have recently come to market or in and around Ocean View that are intriguing. But again, we're neck deep in this lending business right now. We gotta, don't want to spread focus out too much, but
you gotta really watch those bridge loans. Like the one that emailed to me was in Ocean View, and it had, some of them are 1-year bridge loans. That one was a 2-year, but you've really got to be careful with that short-term debt.
Yep, absolutely. So I want to talk about DealMaker for a while, because you have in the years, like I said, since for the last 5-6 years, being aware of you and your community and things like that. But it seems that you are, I've seen it on social media and I've heard people say it, but the godfather of Richmond real estate. So how, and I'm going to ask you to swallow some humility here and just, talk about that. What do you think contributed to that reputation, and that now you're such a prominent figure in all over Virginia, but primarily the Richmond area?
Yeah, I don't know how I got that nickname. I've never even seen The Godfather, but I think it's just because I invest deeply in relationships, and I like to believe in people, and I love to see success stories. So the more I do that, and the more people that are impacted by that, people come up with these crazy nicknames, and that's one of them for sure.
Yeah,
I saw him speaking in Tri-Cities, I think next week, and they used that again. Yeah. Oh, you're going to be there? Okay, great. I'm going to give you a great big hug when I see you. So yeah, I saw they used that. But I think it just has to do with like investing in relationships. I don't think real estate should be done in isolation. I think people should invest in masterminds, mentors, coaches, communities. I really think isolation is terminal, whether it's COVID or real estate investing or being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So find a good community. And then I really think it shouldn't be transactional either. It's easy to make money, but if you invest in people and you invest deeply into relationships, that's the keys to the kingdom. And those opportunities are just going to keep coming your way over and over for years and decades in your lifetime if you do that the right way.
Yep, and that's sage advice. I mean, we joined our first big mastermind right as we were leaving our jobs, our corporate careers, still all in, and we joined a legacy family, Tim Bratz. I don't know if you're familiar with them, and it it's plenty masterminds and groups out there, but man, what we have gotten out of it. Well, let me take a step back. You when you people, I think a lot of people are guilty of joining these masterminds and these groups and just expecting things to happen. You have to pour into them as well, right? And you have to show up to the events and make the relationships and then feed those relationships. And we really honed and focused hard on that, which pretty much most of what we're doing and the relationships we have now were sourced through that mastermind. And and I we now have a lot of folks that are starting in real estate and they don't know where to go. And I'm just like you, I preach to them because I was not of this mindset before. I was a secret agent, just head down, didn't want anybody to know what I was doing and barely talk to anybody. And it worked for me for a number of years, but I had to be that way because of my corporate job. But now that I'm out of that, I want to reach, connect, touch everybody I can find in every area. So, and I know that is what your world is built on.
That's the essence of my world right there. Yeah, I really believe deeply in relationships and investing in people. I mean, we did that for 3 days in Orlando last week at DealMaker, focusing on private money lending, and it was amazing. We had investors from 26 different states with us, and it's becoming like a family. DealMaker is becoming like a family, and everyone that we do is like a family reunion. So it's been amazing to watch. People helping each other, like leaving those egos at the door, not working in isolation, being willing to share what's happening in the market right now, what you're doing, and helping others succeed. The more you help others, you're going to get everything you want. That's a Zig Ziglar quote. I built my life around it. Help enough other people get what they want, you'll have everything you ever need.
Yeah, beautiful. Jim, what is you kind of, as you walk through your story, you identified a few times where you faced adversity, right? The world around you knocked you down, or whatever you were in, you had, your yeah, right. So that is a lot of folks crumble under adversity, right? They don't have the resilience, they don't practice building the resilience and things like that. What can you contribute your ability to get through hard things to? I mean, does that come from your parents? Does it come from just life in general, practice?
Definitely from my dad, for sure. But,
Okay.
That first time I bought that duplex, I didn't do very well because I just kept doing corporate America and I sold the duplex and moved on. That's the wrong thing to do. So I think when you start to fail, part of the equation of success is your speed of recovery. You can't do like I did there and take all those years off. Like you got to get up and go.
Yeah.
Like figure it out. Back then, that was, there was no Facebook, no YouTube, no RIAs. Like there was nothing then. And when I came back in and when I was in Virginia, leaving corporate America, I mean, my checkbook was tight too, but I started going to these training seminars in the Tampa area with people like Jack Miller, Peter Fortunato, John Shaw, Bex Bodiford. And then I began to build my own network and everything changed because I got training, I got people, I had a community, and then everything worked out.
Yeah. And when as you get that and you have a community, that has to build the confidence, right? The confidence to overcome the adversity. And I think that's a big, like I firmly believe, and and hearing folks like you talk, and the wisdom
Yeah.
of folks that are years ahead of me, but like there is no easy road. There is no easy path to getting, having success. So knowing that, and knowing that failure and hurdles and adversity is around pretty much every corner, I understand, and that I have to be prepared for it. And the only way to prepare for it is embrace it, and almost in a twisted way, I I welcome adversity. If things aren't hard, if the right, if the puzzle's not hard, or if I don't have a puzzle to solve,
Right.
sometimes to a flaw, and sometimes you can ask my wife, I'll create problems. I'll create puzzles
The
just to
challenge.
keep right the challenge. And I encounter so many folks that are doing the opposite. They're running from it. They're running from challenges, and they just want this life of comfort. And that's fine. That's fine, but you can't want that life of comfort but also expect greatness to come at the same time. It's just not going
I
to happen.
still remember, like I was talking about the market crash, and that was a hard time for everybody. I
Yes.
mean, anybody in real estate, like 2007, 2008. And I remember writing in my journal back then, Jason, like, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. There were times that for a long period of time, I got up at 5 a.m. every day during that period and worked really late. And I said, I'm going to do that consecutive days until like everything's okay. And I did that. But I remember writing in my journal then, like, this is a huge problem, whatever it was. And I don't know how I'm going to go around it, but I wrote in my journal, like, I'm going to pound my way through it, scale the wall, or find a way around it because I'm not giving up. And you got to have that resolve sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. And this is important to me because I have young kids. My kids are 13 and 8 right now. And I'll segue into this because I like to touch on it every time I have a guest that has children. And in your case, you've raised
Yeah.
children that are now adults now. But was it on your mind at that time not only to get through these hard things, but to show a model to your kids of like weaving through hard things, and
Sure.
talk a little bit about that, how important
Yeah.
that
I
was?
mean, growing up, I mean, my dad taught me to work hard. That's for sure. Show up every day, be consistent. And like, if you're not self motivated, self driven, and disciplined, you're going to struggle in this business. So you got to get your mindset right. And there's no freebies. You got to go out there and make it happen every day. But also, you were touching on this earlier about confidence is really important too. Um, so every time I do DealMaker, Jason, I tell everybody, like, I want you to know that, yeah, we always say your network equals your net worth. It's a really important thing. I love telling people, but I say your self-worth equals your net worth first. You got to believe. And I tell people that I believe in them, and that message resonates. Even myself, when I was leaving corporate America, like, my checkbook was not good. And my wife Cheryl said, "Yeah, I do believe in you. Let's start making the trip to Tampa." So, your checkbook, your heart says yes, your checkbook says no. But if somebody believes in you, it can sort of bridge that gap until you get what you need to make it happen.
Man, you're touching on exactly where I want to go next, and that's your spouse. I know it's very important. Cheryl, is that your wife's name?
Yep.
And I only know that because you so publicly reference her in just about everything you talk about on social media and stuff like that. And which is great. Um, I'm in the same boat. My wife Katie, I cannot do anything without trusting that I have her support, right? And she gives me all that support and that faith in me, even when things aren't going as projected, or things are failing in a moment or something like
Right.
that. Is that unwavering confidence in me that gives me the reassurance that, okay, we got this. We everything can crumble, but I still have the thing I love the most, which is my wife and kids. So how important has that relationship and support been for you over the years?
I mean, your why should make you cry. So your family should be part of your why and part of your legacy, in my opinion. I think it's really important. Cheryl and I met in Jamestown, New York when we were 10 years old, and she moved next door. So, like, we've been together forever. like we're married in a really long time. And even to this day, we're best friends and we work together actively. She's very involved in anything I flip and buy and hold and all of it, and very, very supportive. So if your spouse is not involved in your real estate investing, make that a goal for this year to get them involved, get them on track, because if you're not on the same page, it's going to be a struggle.
Yep. Yeah. No, I don't disagree there. I want to touch a little bit about, we're here in January recording this, and new year, new visions for a lot of folks, new goals. What is your approach and your advice to approaching goal setting, and how to
Okay.
set a goal and work your way, work backwards from that goal to daily tasks and daily KPIs and things like that? Do you have a formula or or any advice around that?
I think it's good to have the big picture in mind, but then bring your goals in a little bit. I really like the 12-week work year. That book is a great book. Scrum is another one. And I think it just creates goals that are like 3 months long. And if you break them down, as long as those 3-month goals are working towards your long-term goals, you'll get there. But I think if you give all 12-month goals, you're going to get to some point in the year and you're going to walk away from them. Last week was Quitter's Day. So don't be a quitter. You've got to set goals. And I think it's really, really important. And so many people don't do it, but I think it's important to write them down. Here's an idea. Maybe what you want to do is write yourself a letter, put it in an envelope and put it in your sock drawer and open it at the end of the year. So you can read what your thoughts were at this time of the year, at the end of the year. And that can give you some more momentum. Speaking of momentum, it's super important. Get some things done, get some small wins, and then let them build into larger wins throughout the year. But goal setting, don't skip it. Write it down. Be consistent. Find an accountability partner, mastermind group, whatever, and make them happen.
Yeah, and what you're saying is consistent with, all the high-level entrepreneurs that I've spoken with on this podcast and just in other conversations. I mean, for example, I had just interviewed John Hewitt, who was the CEO of Jackson Hewitt and Liberty Tax. And that podcast is coming out in a couple of weeks. But I asked him the same question, and he gave the exact same answer. He said, you always got to have the big long-term goal, right? And they always did. He said, but that means nothing if you don't back into, like, reverse engineer that, or,
Absolutely.
to
Reverse engineer
a quarterly, a monthly, and even sometimes a weekly, daily goal, and then share that with your teams and everybody be working towards those micro goals. Because if you don't have the micro goals, at some point you're going to lose, and I agree with this, you're going to lose pace towards the big goal if you don't have these micro goals. And then you'll get halfway through the timeline towards the big goal, and you're, oh man, I'm 30% of my goal. I need to be 50%. I'm going to just quit and set a new goal next January. And so I think that's important. And a lot of folks do. A lot of folks even write their big goals down, but you got to put a strategy in place to hit that goal. That's the only way you're going to typically hit them. So I like that you shared really the same consistent answer I get from a lot of these.
I think it's important. Have your big picture, but create, and every listener right now should do that. Take a minute and just write down some goals for the first quarter of this year.
Yep. Gotcha. So last thing I'll touch on, and before we wrap up, is I want you to, again, you're influential. You touch a lot of people. You empower a lot of people through your networks and all the things you're doing. I know that's very important to you. Let's talk to the folks that, again, with the theme of this podcast being just, changing your life, going all in on something that you're passionate about and things like that. Talk to the people that might be working a corporate career, but they're not happy. They have these other ideas and these other goals in life, whether it be to create something that allows them to spend more time with their family or whatever it is, but they don't know where to start. Give them a starting point.
Well, first of all, don't let anyone steal your dreams. Take those dreams and make them your reality, and start today. Don't put off. The day someday is not on the calendar. I think it's good to talk to some people about your idea first, whether you're innovating a product, creating a service that people need, or whatever it is. Get some friendly advice, but be careful who you listen to also, because there's family and friends who don't understand entrepreneurs at all. They don't have the same mindset at all. So you got to be careful who you talk to. But I do think it's important to get into a great meetup or a small group of people and start sharing that idea and bounce it off some ideas and see how it sticks. You never know until you try. Like when somebody brought me the idea of doing DealMaker meetups around the country in Orlando and Raleigh, I didn't know how that would go. We just kind of threw it out there, created a landing page, and now we're up to 13 cities and growing. So, yeah, just get out there, throw some things against the wall, see what your customers and people in the marketplace need, and if you can fill that gap.
Yeah, I like it. And I saw a quote the other day. You can't have a good idea unless you have a ton of ideas.
That's
right?
true.
Yeah. So for every 100 ideas you have, maybe 2 or 3 of them are good, and maybe one of those goes somewhere. So just keep the brains. And for me, my biggest thing was, when I was at that point of just trying, I wasn't happy with I didn't necessarily hate my job, but I knew I wanted more. For me, it was pouring into myself. I replaced all of this nonsense I was doing with my brain with reading more, listening to the podcast, just self-development. And then that evolved into, you hear things, you try new things, you think of new ideas. And I've had a lot of silly ideas. I still, to this day, fortunately, I have a good business partner and a wife that are very quick to tell me, focus, Jason, you need to focus.
Squirrel. But you said what you said is so important. I think start with your mindset.
Yeah. Yep.
Read book, listen to your podcast, check out YouTube, get in the right communities, and get your mindset straight first.
Yep. So Jim, you're kind of, now you're in the later stages of your entrepreneurial career. And I'm not calling you old, I'm calling you seasoned there. But where's the mindset now? Do you see like retirement? Does that resonate with you? Okay. I didn't expect it to, but you see this journey continuing.
As you can doesn't mean you should.
Right.
But if you do what you love, then it's not work anyways, is it?
No, I agree.
I love developing people and communities, and I plan to keep on doing it. The idea of just sitting on, I love beaches, but just doing that all year round, that would drive me crazy.
Yeah.
I have nothing to do. You need a purpose, find some way to give back, be a producer, don't just be a consumer as well. All of those things are really important.
Yeah, I had an interesting conversation with Allie Murphy, who I know and
she just called me.
Okay. Yeah, we were talking about this idea, and she was the first guest I had on here that we actually went in on this idea, and I've asked several since then, but this idea of are you more excited about the journey you're on or the destination you're heading towards? And we kind of talked it out and both landed on, we want to create a journey that we're so passionate about that we don't want it to end. That is the destination, a journey that we don't want to end. So sounds like you're on that same wavelength, and for you the journey now is impacting people. It seems like that shit. That is
we're working with Share the Love a lot, and so we're helping. I'm on the board with Share the Love, and we're distributing wheelchairs this month in the Philippines. We're going to spend, not me personally, but we'll be spending 2 months this summer in Africa, giving people that desperately need wheelchairs the gift of mobility. So find something with a purpose and lean into that as well.
Okay, Jim, I'm going to ask you when we get done, if you could send me a link to that charity. I'd love to drop it in the show notes, and I'm going to drop all of your information, your social media and stuff like that. And I know you're an author as well. You wrote a book. It's been a while ago now, but what's the name of the book, and where can folks find it?
I've written 2 books.
Okay,
Investing Now and Cash Flow Now on Amazon, but Investing Now is no longer on Amazon. So Cash Flow Now is old. It's been out there a while, but the topics are still pretty relevant.
Yeah, I gotta imagine that the foundational, like the fundamentals, don't change, right? The
There's
things
more on
around it
private
all.
money and things like
Right?
that in that book.
Yeah.
That's when I was developing it. And I was just sort of figuring it out when I wrote that book.
Yep. And I thought it was interesting. This thought came to my mind earlier when you mentioned about the days, like when you started, there was no social media, there was none of this, but you were able to evolve in a world of technology. And I mean, at one point, I believe you had a Facebook group or page that had over or several 100,000 followers. That couldn't you have some issues with that as far as they got hacked or something? But
Correct.
yeah, but like you went from a world like building a business in a world where that didn't even exist to kind of spearheading one of the biggest real estate groups, on social media. Yep. So where are things with that group? Were you able to get it revamped and building again, or
The DealMaker Facebook group on Facebook is small now. It was
Yeah.
380,000 people and it was gone in 3 hours. But that's okay. We're building back with higher quality and we've got a lot of growth right now. So people should check it out.
DealMaker? We'll drop that. I'm a member of the group, but we'll drop it in the link as well or in the show notes. Jim,
All your podcasts there, Jason. People would love it.
all right, I will certainly do that. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you're busy. And we've got a lot of. I look forward to seeing you next week. Like it'll be the first time I get to meet you in person, and I know you're gonna pack that house because that's a small venue for you. Ooh, yeah, it is. So, but I'll get there early and try to get a good seat. But again, Jim, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you sharing your insights and wisdom with our audience. And our audience is made up primarily of entrepreneurs and folks in the real estate space. So for those that aren't familiar with Jim, please check out all the links below. And let's continue growing our network, which is our net worth, as he said earlier. And Jim, with that, do you have any final thoughts or anything you want to leave the folks with?
No, I just want to encourage you to keep on rolling with your podcasts. I think podcasts are really important. They really help a lot of people. I used to have my own podcast and I had people tell me the impact that it made. So I know they work. So I just encourage you to keep rolling on that and doing a great job.
Well, I appreciate it. And we try to get, we sprinkle a lot of real estate in, but we try to get entrepreneurs from every walk of life. And I've even had single moms on here talking about being all in on raising their kids, So
Yeah,
I want to touch it all, but, more than anything else, it's just like you said earlier, that we're not making any money from this podcast. It's to inspire people, hopefully, and just continue to connect with great minds like yourself. So I appreciate you contributing to that, and I look forward to meeting you next week.
look forward to it. See you there.
All right. Thank you, Jim. Man, what an episode. That was a good conversation with Jim Ingersoll. He's been, a legend in our area of Virginia for years, and somehow I've until today's conversation, I hadn't met him in person. And I get to do that next week. So I'm excited about that, an event he's speaking at. But Jim, I mean, he's the example of, you heard the story. It's a couple burning the ships moment, but one very similar to me at 40 years old, left his corporate career and went into real estate full time. And then you heard him talk through that evolution. So what a story. What an impactful human being. Now he's all about serving other real estate entrepreneurs, professionals, things like that, and trying to help people be inspired and grow wherever they're growing. So I encourage all of you to check out all the links in the show notes that will connect you with Jim, his social media, his groups, and things like that. And also we're going to drop a link to the charity that Jim mentioned that he's a part of, if anybody wants to check that out and make a donation or any type of contribution. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Burning the Ships. I want to give a special thanks to our sponsor, 608B Capital, helping real estate investors secure fast, reliable funding to fuel their boldest moves. If you're ready to take your investing to the next level, visit 608bcapital.com to learn more. If you found value in today's episode, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast. Your feedback not only helps us improve, but it also helps us reach more people who are ready to burn the ships and commit fully to their goals. And don't forget to share this episode with someone who needs that extra push to take bold action. I'll leave you with this. Burning the ships isn't just about removing the option to retreat. It's about unlocking the courage to charge forward. No matter the odds, the past is behind you, and the future is yours to conquer. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Burning the Ships. I want to give a special thanks to our sponsor, 608B Capital, helping real estate investors secure fast, reliable funding to fuel their boldest moves. If you're ready to take your investing to the next level, visit 608bcapital.com to learn more. If you found value in today's episode, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast. Your feedback not only helps us improve, but it also helps us reach more people who are ready to burn the ships and commit fully to their goals. And don't forget to share the episode with someone who needs that extra push to take bold action. I'll leave you with this. Burning the ships isn't just about removing the option to retreat. It's about unlocking the courage to charge forward. No matter the odds, the past is behind you and the future is yours to conquer. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time on Burning the Ships.